along the lines of don't just invest, say, in Tesla or in Apple, invest in the raw materials they need because you're completely covering all your bases. And this is what you're doing. So you would then physically own, 1 kilo or 5 kilos or whatever as of each one.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek. I'm happy to have on our podcast Louis O'Connor, all the way from Ireland. He's the founder and principal of Strategic Metals Invest. They're the only industry supplier in the world to offer private investors the option to purchase and profit from owning strategic metals. How you doing, Louis?
Very well. Sorry, excuse me, Mike. I'm very well. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
So we've had gold and lithium and titanium, some of the other different stuff and different mining things, and strategic metals is the first time we've had that. I know what strategic is, but what is it in the metal business?
Yeah, a good question to start, Mike, because strategic metals, that's the name of my company, Strategic Metals Invest, but it's basically an umbrella term for rare earth metals, rare earth elements, which are basically the powdered form, what we call the oxide form of rare earths. And in America, for example, people call them technology. The scientific term is rare earth metals, but a lot of people would call them technology metals. Now we're also calling them green metals because they're critical to electric cars, solar power, wind power. So yeah, strategic metals is an umbrella term for those metals that are intrinsic to how we power or how we live our daily lives. Like, for example, indium, you couldn't swipe your phone without indium. There's about 12 rare earths in one phone, So they're in pretty much everything.
Interesting. Now, when you say rare earth for our viewers, does it mean they're hard to find or there's not much of it? What is rare?
Spoken like a true private detective there, Mike. Most people wouldn't ask that question because they're called rare earths. People think, okay, so they're rare, but they're not all that rare. They were considered rare when they were discovered first, hence the name. But there's plenty of rare earths in the US. There's plenty. China has 50% of the world's reserves. They're in Japan, they're in Australia. But what makes them scarce, might be a better word, is China has gone over the last 30 years they produce more than 80% of the world's rare earths. So they're the complete dominant market leader. Basically what happened is China sort of understood before Europe, maybe before the US even, that rare earths were going to be the sort of backbone. They were going to be the raw materials that would be the backbone of manufacturing in the 21st century. And China did what China does with a 25, 30-year plan. And they've basically, taken over the industry. They refine 87% of the world's rare earths, so the nearly complete domination.
And that's very important. I know here in the States with trying to find the EV batteries and trying to find the components for that, because it's kind of weird where there are certain states, California being one, all of a sudden they're like, no gas powered cars, everything has to be electric no new gas cars are allowed to be sold by 2035. But then some of the people like Musk and some of the miners are like, whoa, wait a minute. We don't have the electricity for this. We don't have the rare metals for you to do that. And all of a sudden these other states are jumping on. How do you see this? It kind of put you in as like, kind of a panic mode, or like, is it because we're seeing two different sides of it. Is there enough of the stuff? And will China let us have it, or is there enough around the world? And I know South America has some. Is there enough?
Well, it's a great question. You're right. We, like you mentioned, by 2000 in California, 2035, we don't have the infrastructure yet in Europe or the US to cater for that. Even speaking militarily, there's three-quarters of rare earths in three-quarters of a ton of rare earths in one F-35 fighter jet. To give you one example, like there's 10 of them that are strategic. One is called gallium. Right now, according to the Fraunhofer Institute in Switzerland, they reckon that the demand for gallium is 9 times higher than the supply. Gallium has been up 50% a year every year for the last 5 years, and it's already up 40% a year. So, no, there's not enough in the supply chain. But for me, like for my business and for our discussion tonight, that's good news because we offer private investors the opportunity to purchase and hold these, industrial grade, high value assets. Store them just like it's the same paradigm as gold or silver, except they're rare earths is what you're buying, and they have there's huge demand in all different industries. So from a philosophical point of view, probably it's not great news for humanity, but from a business point of view, as an investor, it's good news,
Absolutely, yeah. It's because I think everyone, even the everyday folk, know that gold and silver is kind of the steady eddies. It's going to be there, and as the economy goes up and down, and so does gold. But everyone is learning about these strategic metals or the rare earth metals, and they know that is the future.
Correct.
Of doing everything that especially the being more green. We need those. Now, when people invest in you, are you a public company that people are purchasing shares of your stock, or are you? How does that work?
Okay, yeah, good question. So, no, we're not a public; we're a private company, and this might sound contradictory, but the most important thing we do is we are a commodities broker. So this little investment side I'm about to talk to you about, that's not the most important thing we do, because if we were we're an industry supplier, so we're based in Frankfurt in Germany. I'm in Ireland, but our office is in Frankfurt. We have a vault in Frankfurt, very close to 3,000 meters from what was Rhein-Main Air Base, which you're probably familiar with, right beside Frankfurt Airport. So what we're doing, 85% of our business activities, we're buying rare earths from producers, mostly in China, and then we resell them back to industry buyers. So we've buyers in more than 70 different countries. We've many clients in the US. We sell them to people who are making medical devices, other brokers who are selling them to industry, aviation, electric cars, the full gamut,
Yeah.
So if we weren't an industry buyer, we couldn't offer the rare earths as an investment play. Do you know what I mean? If I was just a sales and marketing guy here who was sort of saying, okay, we're going to buy metals and then we're going to sell them to the US Department of Defense in 10 years and we're all going to make loads of money. No. It doesn't work like that, because no industry buyer will buy rare earths without the proper chain of custody, meaning, where they were produced, who produced them, what the purity levels are, analysis reports. You'll only get them from an industry supplier. For example, the US Department of Defense, whoever they're buying their rare earths from for an F-35 or Boeing or whoever's making them, they're not just going to buy them off anybody. They have to be, full chain of custody. So what we've done is we're 30 years as an industry supplier. And what happened was we bought the vault in Frankfurt. It used to be a bunker in World War II. It was an air raid shelter. Bought that, converted it to a bank level secure vault, armed security, fully insured. And we started, this is 12 years ago, we started because some of our industry clients were asking, could we store some of the materials longer? They weren't quite ready for them, or they had, they'd ordered enough for a few years, and the powdered ones need certain conditions, so the purity levels don't deteriorate. So industry buyers asked us, could we store them? And then the same, funny enough, our first customers on the investment side were people who worked who worked in these industries and who were buying.
Mm.
They started, oh, could we buy them as an investment? So the idea came from there. We're the only company in the world to do it at this moment in time, but we're the only one qualified to do it because we're an industry supplier.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if we weren't doing business on a daily basis in rare earths, we couldn't morally contemplate the investment side. Because, well, I suppose I'll just finish with this, Mike. The
Mm-hmm.
two guarantees we offer, I suppose, are our warranty statement, if you will, that say to you, the investor, is one, we guarantee you're buying industrial grade high value assets that can be liquidated to any industry buyer, whether that's Tesla, BMW, US DOD, Siemens, doesn't matter. They're
Mm.
industry standard. The second guarantee is we guarantee to liquidate them
Mm.
to an industry buyer when our clients are ready. If we weren't able to do both of those things, this would just be a sort of a joke, if you know what I mean. It
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't work out.
So are people buying like a share of your company or a share of what am I getting? A royalty or
No, you physically own the metals.
the metals?
Yeah, you actually physically take
Mm-hmm.
possession. We highly recommend you store them with us. But
Mm.
once you've paid for them and they've been delivered, they're your metals. If you wanted to move them to the US, you could, but it's just going to cost you money. It's better to store with us because one,
Mm.
they're being stored in an industrial standard facility. Two, when it's time to liquidate them, they can be liquidated in a few days. You don't even need to give 30 days. They're highly liquid product.
Mm-hmm. So how do the investors profit? I buy gallium from you, or do I
Yeah,
give you, here's $100,000 and I say, heck, I don't know what any of these things are. Just buy some stuff,
yeah,
and make me a profit. How do they, when you sell my stuff, that's when I get the profit?
yeah. Well, look, just as an example, $100,000, right? I mean, our minimum investment is $10,000, but if you wanted to invest 100,000, I'd obviously we'd spend a bit of time together. I'd run
Mm-hmm.
through the metal. There's only 10, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd show you, look, these are the metals that are critical to solar energy. These are the ones for wind turbines. These are for electric cars. These are the ones for modern technology, all the devices we use. And usually they overlap a bit. And you might say, you'd have a choice. Like you could say, okay, I just want to buy gallium. If you want to just buy gallium, that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, what we suggest is buy one of each, buy $10,000 of each one, because you're then invested in just about every industry that's growing today: technology, sustainable energy,
Mm-hmm.
medical devices, aviation. I think it was Elon Musk just said as well, along the lines of, don't just invest, say, in Tesla or in Apple, invest in the raw materials they need, because you're completely covering all your bases. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what you're doing. So you would then physically own, 1 kilo or 5 kilos or whatever as of each one. And, we recommend, Mike, a 3 to 5 year play.
Mm-hmm.
It's at least 1 year is recommended. And I'll tell you why, because the storage facility is a free trade zone. And if you keep them there for at least a year, there's no taxes, there's no import duties or VAT
Mm-hmm.
when you sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you make a profit? Well, to give you an idea, the historical price and for all metals, I'm not just going to give you one. The average gain for the last 5 years, every year, is 34.25%. So they're very, very good returns as of late. So if you'd invested $100,000 5 years ago, you'd be up to 270% at this moment in time. And let's say that you came to me, Louis, I've doubled my money. I want to take my original investment out, or I want to take all my money out. Then you just give us a notice, and we'll make you an offer that day,
Mm-hmm.
what the current price is. If you accept the offer, we'll send you an invoice. You okay the invoice, and we'll sell them, and you get your money in 3 to 4 working days.
Yeah. And it seems like because of the type of metals they are, it's a little more on the, in the 1 to 10, the low risk to high risk. I'm saying now that I don't see this is, unless we just create some other type of technology, I don't see this going away anywhere. And matter of fact, I see it just getting more rare or something. It's the demand is just going to grow, and it's just going to be exploding because of the green push.
You're absolutely right. We're just at the beginning of it's a new alternative asset class. We've only been offering them to sort of private investors for 12 years. It's a long time, but it's still a new asset class. But we're only at the beginning. Like I'm telling you a lot about the pros, right? But let's talk pros and cons to everything, right? So, you sort of nailed it there at the beginning. You were just touching on the point of, like, let's say, for example, indium, I mentioned to you. I mean, let's suppose somebody came up with a better technology than indium for swiping your phone next week. Yep. All of a sudden, that demand for indium is going to taper off. So that could bring the prices down, right? That's the only, like, in terms of, obviously, people have to do their due diligence. Like, what I'm telling you is fact, but they have to find all this out for themselves. We can send them all the legal imprints and stuff. But once people do their due diligence, what they'll find is they're buying from an industry buyer who has 30 years in the industry, and 12 years offering them as private investments. So you're as safe as you can be with any business that's 30 years in business. And they also, the commodities we sell are in high demand. So there's not much risk there of any, it's a German company. Germany's one of the leading trading economies in the world, and the metals they offer are in huge demand all over the world. So that part of it is safe. They'll find out. So yeah, the cons could be, one, better technology for a certain metal comes along. Two, and this is a bit of a kicker, is China can play the rare earths economic card. I'll give you two examples, right? And it's all of this is hidden in plain sight, Mike. Like, you could Google this and you'll find it out in 10 minutes. And people are sort of amazed. Like, in 2010, China had a territorial dispute with Japan, and Japan detained a trawler captain because he was fishing in disputed waters, right? In retaliation for that, the Chinese restricted the export of rare earths. And we saw some of them go up 5 times in value in the space of a few months, because China controls this market. They've won. Now, what happened there was the US, Japan, Europe took China to the WTO. China lost, but it didn't matter. I mean, in terms of people who'd invested in rare earths, they'd made a profit, right? So they can play that economic card, right? The second thing China can do is, because they've 87% of the world's production, and they did this last year, we had some of our metals double in value last year. And I'll tell you exactly why that happened. Is China doubled the value of electric cars they produced last year. So they're starting to keep more of these materials for themselves, and then prices are rising in the West,
Yeah, it's very interesting. And you see that, I think, every commodity. We're seeing it in oil right now. So it's when you make someone mad, or you do something and they have a controlling interest, it's up to them. It's how mean or
if they're in that position of strength. I mean, I know it myself when I'm arguing with my wife, if I've won or lost.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're in a position of strength, and when but yeah, you're 100% right. I tell you, the way China sees this, right? It's not an economic fight; it's a geopolitical strategy, 30 years in the making. And what we offer investors is, let's hack China's geopolitical strategy. How do we hack it? Well, they control the rare earths, but you can hold them in Germany as an asset for when China escalates or restricts. Prices will spike, and you can sell and capitalize. That's the strategy. Now, as I always say, and look, I'm an investor first. I first invested in 2017. And as I always say, like, at the bare minimum, on a good day, I hold an asset that is in high demand, and supply is sort of limited and subject to disruption. On a better day, I hold an asset where China dominates and China could restrict quotas. So it's a sort of a win-win as long as you're willing to stay in for 3 to 5, even 10 years. And our historical pricing proves that. If anybody who invested 5 years ago is up, 270%, I mean, it's way outperforms gold, S&P, so, but it's just people don't know about it. That's why I'm here talking to you. We're in Europe. We, until very recently, we've done zero marketing, even in English, outside of sort of Germany, Austria, Switzerland. But we just been going through, we've extended the storage capacity. We're expanding the business. And now we're sort of, going a bit more international, Ireland, UK, America. Look, I know US investors will love this product. I mean, look, we already have quite a few clients, but look, I'm European, but US investors are they're a little bit more innovative. They've a bit more adventure, I think, as well. And once they know the full story here, they go, okay, hold on a minute. This sounds interesting.
Exactly, because we do push diversification, on portfolios. We do it on our podcast, and a lot of people in the States do that. And we always are, the buy and hold type of speakers. It's like I'm not into the day trading things like that. You diversify, put your money in, and hold it. Yeah. You can play with a little bit and things like that, but assets usually always go up. And, where do you see the company? Can they invent? Can you find other rare metals? Where do you see yourself 3 years from now, 5 years from now? You touched on it a little bit, jumping over here in the States a little bit more. Where do you see Strategic Metals invest in the near future and then maybe 5-10 years out?
Okay, great question about the metal too, because just this year they sort of discovered, if you will, named a new metal, and now we'll find out its applications. As we discussed earlier, it's just beginning. Like the world of, it's almost like rare earths. We're waiting for the world, to be able to use them. For example, we didn't have all this modern technology 30 years ago, so they weren't being used for that. Our business, like, we're a private company, and we do a lot of turnover. We do a high turnover, but we'll only grow to a certain size in terms of what we offer to investors, because it has to be safe for the investor. To give you just an idea, our vault in Frankfurt has like over 200 metric tons of rare earth. So we've over 200,000 kilos in the inventory. It's the largest inventory of rare earths anywhere outside of China. Only less than 25% of that inventory, Mike, is investor owned. So that ratio, remember, it's a German company as well, very, very conservative, very, very honest. I mean, all businesses need to be honest, but they're completely transparent. So they'll never sell more than 25% in investors. Why? Because they have a commitment to be able to liquidate those investors. So the ratio is sort of 3-1, So we will grow and we will expand. I'll give you a little bit of a news, I suppose. It's very early days to be even saying this, but we sort of knew 12 years ago that we could see from our business that demand for rare earths is off the charts, and it's not. Nobody in the world would argue demand is going to decrease for these raw materials. Not even the mother-in-law would argue they're going to go down, right?
Wow.
Well, she might, but anyway, so demand is and as well, and just in the last 6 months with Russia's aggression, Europe now needs to wean its dependence off Russian oil and gas. How are they going to do that? Solar energy, wind turbines, electric cars. So demand, a year ago, demand was off the chart. Now we're looking at, so you will see more production in the US. The US has rare earths. The only problem is the US, Mountain Pass in California, the only producing facility in North America, they still have to send all the raw materials to be refined, because China has 30 years more experience. Like, as you pointed out earlier, you're asking me, are they rare? you're trying to figure out why would this make it a good investment? I can see where you're going. Now, here's the answer to the whole thing. And I guarantee you, Mike, right? There's no more than 200 people in all of North America know this or are aware of this, even though it's only a couple of Google alerts away to find out, right? So here's the real deal. What makes them expensive is, as we said, there's plenty of them in the US, they're in Australia, but they don't occur naturally. They're all together and they're always a byproduct of another raw material. So gallium, for example, is a byproduct of aluminum, mining. So there'll never be more gallium without an overproduction of aluminum. So they have to be extracted, then they have to be separated, and then they have to be refined. That's what makes them expensive. Now, in the 1980s, the US was producing 60% of the world's rare earths. China wasn't producing much at all. And I think what happened was China understood before Europe and before the US how critical they were going to be for the 21st century. And what China legitimately did, they partnered with these companies in the US and different places of the world, and they legitimately moved all the refining to China. And they now have 30-year advantage on that. The crucial role is you need not just geologists, but you need what's called a metallurgist. And there's only a handful of universities in the US for the last 30 years graduating, degrees in critical minerals and metallurgy. I'll give you an idea on the scale, Mike. The US has been graduating about 200 a year for the last 30 years. China's graduating 200 a week. So we don't have the human capital in the US or in Europe. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on the US. I'm talking about the US because you're in the US.
Yeah.
Europe is no better. In fact, Europe, we have no production here. You guys at least have production. Now, what's going to start to happen, though, is you will see, in fact, if you look, you'll see that in a very rare occurrence of agreement, both President Trump and President Biden, probably the only thing they ever agreed on, they both signed executive orders recognizing the US needs to wean their dependence off China, right? So you're going to hear a lot of the politicians say we're going to, we're going to solve this. But the truth is that war is already over. That race is won and China has won. And then we as investors can profit from that.
Sounds it's very entertaining, very knowledgeable. I appreciate you coming on. It's just something that we've all heard the terms, but we just kind of pass it. Yeah, rare earths and, okay, whatever, but to sit there and get down to the nitty gritty of why it's important. And everyone wants to know how you can profit off of something. That's just human nature, right? It's like, hey, how can I take advantage of all this stuff that's going on and profit from it instead of just seeing everyone just spending money trying to develop these things. So I appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, Louis, how can people find Strategic Metals Invest?
Okay, so they can go. That's the website. So they can go to the website and download the brochure, leave their name and email, and I'll contact them for some follow up. They can even email me directly, Louis at strategicmetalsinvest.com, LOUIS. And if they mention, Mike, that the podcast, we look after them very well, of course.
Yeah, thank you. And LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm not. I think it's just.
Yeah, I think
Louis
I've got
O'Connor.
it. I see here LinkedIn.com and then Louis O'Connor and everybody again. Strategic Metals with an S, invest.com. And Louis is LOUIS at strategicmetalsinvest.com. Louis, it's been absolutely wonderful. I'm thinking, I might just check out strategicmetalsinvest.com myself and look at diversifying a little bit of my portfolio. And I appreciate you coming on and have a wonderful evening in Ireland. Have a Guinness for me.
I'll have to have two then, Mike. One for me, one for you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.